Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed how the world pushes you to react? How every challenge, every criticism, every unexpected event seems to demand an immediate emotional response? That's no accident. The people who try to shake you, whether through anger, fear, or doubt, thrive on your loss of control. Because the moment you react without thinking, you hand them your power. But here's the truth. The person who remains composed in the face of adversity is the person who controls the situation. Think about the moments in your life when someone tried to provoke you. Maybe it was a coworker, a so-called friend, or even a stranger. They wanted a reaction. They wanted to dictate your state of mind. But what happens when you don't give them what they want? They become uncomfortable, uneasy, powerless, because your stillness forces them to confront their own lack of control. You see, composure isn't just about staying calm. It's about standing firm in who you are, refusing to be a puppet to the emotions and expectations of others. When you master yourself, you become untouchable. This is why emotional discipline is rare. It takes practice. It requires you to recognize that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every insult deserves an answer. It demands that you set your ego aside in favor of long-term victory. And here's the secret most people don't understand. Silence is not weakness. It's a strategy. The more still you are, the more chaotic they become. The more rational you remain, the more erratic they look. Your composure exposes them, not you. History has shown us time and time again, those who cannot be broken become the greatest threat to systems that rely on control. The moment you refuse to play the game, you change the rules. And that terrifies those who only know how to win through manipulation. So when they push, when they prod, when they try to drag you into the storm, smile, breathe, stand tall. Let them exhaust themselves trying to shake you, while you remain as unmovable as the mountains. Because your composure is their worst nightmare. The power of unshaken presence. In a world that thrives on reaction, the ability to remain composed is one of the rarest and most powerful traits a person can possess. Every day, we are bombarded with provocations, whether it's an argument with a colleague, a heated debate online, or an unexpected challenge that threatens to throw us off balance. The expectation is simple: react, engage, lose control. But what if you didn't? The person who can stand firm in the face of chaos, who does not flinch under pressure, who refuses to be manipulated by emotional turbulence, that person holds the real power. Not the loudest voice in the room, not the one throwing accusations or stirring the pot, but the one who remains unwavering, who does not allow external circumstances to dictate their internal state. Composure is not passivity. It is not weakness. It is the quiet confidence of someone who has learned that reacting impulsively does not serve them. When you stay calm, you think more clearly. You act with precision instead of desperation. You see, the moment you allow yourself to be pulled into someone else's storm, you lose your own direction. You surrender control over yourself to external forces that do not have your best interests at heart. And that is exactly why composure is intimidating. It is why people who thrive on conflict, on drama, on manipulation, fear those who do not play along. They cannot control a person who does not react. They cannot shake someone who has built their foundation on discipline and self-awareness. History's greatest leaders, thinkers, and warriors understood this truth. The generals who won wars did not do so by making impulsive decisions in the heat of battle. The visionaries who changed the world did not waste their energy engaging in petty disputes. They mastered themselves first, and by doing so, they dictated the course of events rather than being swept away by them. You must become the kind of person who is unmoved by trivialities, who refuses to be baited into meaningless fights. When someone insults you, when they try to get a rise out of you, when they push you to react, pause, breathe, look them in the eye, and choose not to give them the satisfaction of seeing you lose control. That is power. That is the art of dominance through discipline. The world is full of noise. People scream for attention, desperate to pull others into their emotional chaos. But there is nothing more unsettling to those who seek to manipulate than a person who simply will not be moved. Let that be you. Because when you remain composed, you don't just win the battle, you render it irrelevant. Mastering yourself is the first victory. Before you can conquer any challenge in the world, you must first conquer yourself. This is a truth that most people ignore, choosing instead to focus on external battles, chasing success, proving their worth to others, seeking validation through arguments and victories that ultimately do not matter. But the greatest battle you will ever fight is the one within. If you cannot master your emotions, your impulses, your reactions, then you are a servant to the world around you. Self-mastery begins with awareness. You must recognize the ways in which you are easily swayed, the buttons that people push to make you react, the weaknesses that others exploit to control your state of mind. Every time you lose your temper, every time you allow frustration to dictate your actions, you are handing over power, not just to the person in front of you, but to any circumstance that knows how to press the right triggers. A person who is not in control of themselves is at the mercy of everything around them. The disciplined individual, however, operates differently. They do not react impulsively. They do not allow fleeting emotions to dictate long-term decisions. They understand that control over the external world is often limited, but control over the self is absolute. If one is willing to put in the work, this is not about suppressing emotion, it is about channeling it. It is about feeling anger but not letting it dictate your words, feeling fear but not letting it control your steps, feeling doubt but not allowing it to halt your progress. This kind of control is not built overnight. It requires practice, just like any other skill. It begins in small moments. The urge to snap at someone who irritates you, the temptation to lash out when you feel slighted. These are the battlegrounds where self-mastery is forged. Each time you choose to remain composed, each time you refuse to be provoked, you are training yourself to become unshakable. And over time, this discipline compounds. You become the kind of person who does not crumble under pressure, who does not break when challenged, who does not allow the outside world to dictate their inner peace. And here's the thing. When you reach this level of control, you become a force to be reckoned with. You stand out in a world full of reactionary behavior. People begin to respect your presence, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. You carry yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who does not need to prove anything to anyone. Your stillness becomes intimidating because those who rely on emotional manipulation, on fear, on control, realize they cannot control you. Most people live their lives being pushed and pulled by everything around them. News headlines, social media outrage, workplace drama, personal conflicts. They spend their days in a state of constant reaction, never realizing that they are being controlled by forces outside of themselves. But the ones who rise above this, the ones who take ownership of their own minds, their own responses, their own internal world, those are the people who dictate the direction of their lives. Master yourself first. because the one who has control over their own mind, emotions, and actions is the one who cannot be controlled by anything or anyone else. Emotional manipulation is the oldest tactic. Since the dawn of time, those who seek power have understood one fundamental truth. If you can control someone's emotions, you can control their actions. Kings, tyrants, politicians, and manipulators of every kind have used this strategy to bend people to their will, not through force, but through influence. They do not need to physically restrain you if they can make you angry, afraid, or desperate enough to act against your own best interests. And the moment you react emotionally without thinking, you have already lost. This is how wars are started, how relationships are broken, how people are baited into battles that never needed to happen. If you observe carefully, you'll notice that the world constantly pressures you to react to news, to social media, to criticism, to insults, to fear-mongering. The goal is simple: keep you emotional, keep you reactive, keep you from thinking clearly, because a person who cannot control their emotions is easy to manipulate. Have you ever noticed how people who want to dominate others rarely use logic? They don't try to persuade with reason. They use guilt, anger, shame, and fear. A skilled manipulator will poke at your insecurities, make you feel small, make you feel unheard, because they know that when you feel emotionally overwhelmed, you will grasp at anything that offers relief. And in doing so, you fall into their trap. You act impulsively, you say things you regret, you make decisions that weaken your position rather than strengthen it. But the moment you refuse to engage in emotional warfare, their power over you crumbles. When you stay calm, when you do not give them the reaction they seek, they lose control. This is why composure is such a dangerous weapon. A person who cannot be manipulated emotionally is someone who cannot be easily controlled, and that terrifies those who rely on manipulation as their greatest tool. Think about a time when someone tried to push your buttons, whether in an argument, in a negotiation, or in a moment of conflict. What did they want? A reaction, anger, frustration, desperation. Because the moment you reacted emotionally, they had leverage. But what happens when you don't react, when you remain still? They become confused, unsettled. Their tactic fails because they do not know what to do with someone who refuses to play the game. This is why the strongest people are often the calmest in high-pressure situations. They do not allow others to dictate their emotional state. They do not allow themselves to be provoked into battles that serve no purpose. They understand that emotional control is a form of power, and power belongs to those who can master themselves. So the next time someone tries to manipulate you through emotion, pause. Do not react. See their strategy for what it is, an attempt to control you. And when you refuse to play their game, when you stand firm in your own rationality, you take away the very tool they depend on. Because a person who cannot be manipulated is a person who cannot be controlled. Silence is louder than rage. In a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, silence is the most unsettling response. People expect anger when they provoke you. They expect defensiveness when they challenge you. But when you meet aggression with stillness, when you refuse to be pulled into the chaos they are creating, you expose something crucial: their lack of control, not yours. Emotional people want validation. When they lash out, they want you to react so they can justify their own behavior. When you don't, they are left alone with their frustration, forced to confront the fact that their tactics have failed. This is why silence is so powerful. It forces the other person to fill the space, to reveal themselves, to make mistakes. Think about the greatest leaders in history, They did not waste their energy in petty conflicts. They did not yell to prove their authority. Their presence alone commanded respect because they had learned a fundamental truth. The more you speak in anger, the weaker you appear. The louder you are, the less people take you seriously. But the one who speaks with precision, the one who chooses words carefully, or sometimes chooses not to speak at all, that is the person people listen to. Silence is control. It denies your opponent the reaction they seek. It turns their aggression inward. And in doing so, it shifts the power dynamic in your favor. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their storm, don't fight the wind. Stand still. Because nothing is more unnerving to a person who thrives on conflict than someone who simply refuses to engage. Resilience terrifies those who rely on weakness. There are people who thrive on the fragility of others. They gain influence by keeping those around them insecure, uncertain, and easy to manipulate. But when they encounter someone who cannot be broken, someone who remains steady no matter the pressure, they feel threatened. Why? Because their usual tactics no longer work. Resilience is not just about enduring hardship. It is about refusing to let hardship define you. It is about standing firm when others expect you to fall, remaining composed when chaos surrounds you, and choosing discipline over self-destruction. When you do this, you force those who rely on control to face their own weakness. Because if you can stand strong, then their power over you was never real to begin with. This is why your resilience, your refusal to be manipulated, makes some people uncomfortable. It exposes them. It takes away their ability to dictate your emotions. And when they realize they cannot shake you, their frustration grows. They lash out. They escalate. They try harder to break you. But the moment you stay unmoved, they know they have already lost. Strength is not about domination. It is about mastery over your mind, your emotions, and your reactions. The strongest person in any room is not the one who yells the loudest, but the one who does not need to yell at all. So stand firm, stay composed, because nothing is more terrifying to those who rely on weakness than a person who refuses to be anything but strong.